My boyfriend's phone contained intimate photos of his mate's girlfriend. When I discovered them, he was silent for a long time. "We're just friends, nothing more," he said. I watched coldly as he waited on her hand and foot, catering to her every whim. My boyfriend suddenly realized, "Ariana, aren't you angry?" Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. When that photo appeared in the group chat, Daniel's friend was already drunk. Claire Shaw's private photos, have a look. At the dinner table, silence fell instantly. Everyone simultaneously turned to look at the woman, whose face had gone pale. Probably feeling embarrassed, she forced a smile and said, "You're drunk, delete it quickly." Before she could finish speaking, she was abruptly pushed aside. Claire stumbled, the color draining from her small, delicate face. Her gaze fell on the person beside me. My heart sank. Daniel Foster flinched slightly, but as he started to stand up, I grabbed his hand and pushed him back down. His palm trembled slightly. Phones started ringing, and Daniel was the first to take his out. After a glance, his expression changed drastically. "How dare you send out this kind of photo? Have you gone mad?" His mate looked up with drunken eyes. "Are you upset?" Daniel was speechless. Claire, holding back tears, cried out as she saw someone pick up their phone. "No!" But it was too late. The person had already zoomed in on the screen, the warm light illuminating their face as the intimate details were fully exposed. Something must have triggered Daniel. In an instant, he grabbed a bottle and smashed it over his friend's head. The private room descended into chaos. Screams erupted from all directions. Someone tried to take out their phone amidst the confusion, but Daniel's flying bottle knocked it out of their hand. "Don't you dare look at your phones," he roared. After his outburst, he collected everyone's phones one by one, personally deleting that photo. When he came to me, Daniel hesitated for a moment. But still, he took my phone without room for argument. At this point, his friend lying on the floor regained consciousness. He grabbed an empty bottle from somewhere and smashed it against Daniel's head. "Claire Shaw is the woman I slept with, you bastard, what's it to you?" Friends who had been close for years. A fistfight broke out over a photograph. Daniel Foster was sent to the hospital to get stitches. Suspected concussion. As he was getting an injection in the ward, Claire Shaw rushed in. Her eyes reddened at the sight of Daniel. "Daniel, how are you?" Before she could finish, the man who had just vomited 3 times on the hospital bed struggled to sit up. "I'm fine. I've deleted all the photos." She froze. Seeming to notice me standing nearby for the first time, she pursed her lips. Eric Knight was also beaten and hospitalized. "He's in the next room." She tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, glanced down at her outfit, then looked up again. "I'll go check on him first." From the bed, Daniel's gaze followed her as she left, his lips moving but no words coming out. I lowered my eyes. "Miss her? Want me to call her back?" Daniel was stunned. He awkwardly averted his gaze. "Claire is Eric's girlfriend. Don't read too much into it." Claire Shaw again. The first time I heard Claire Shaw's name. Daniel and I were having barbecue. He was flipping the meat when his phone suddenly rang. He looked down for a while, his brows furrowed. He didn't even notice when the meat on the grill started to burn. I reminded him. It took 3 calls before Daniel snapped back to reality. He still didn't put down his phone, hurriedly picking up the overcooked meat and tossing it away. I asked him, "What's so urgent?" Without looking up, Daniel answered reflexively, "Claire." The tongs fell off the table. Clatter. The atmosphere froze. Daniel seemed to suddenly realize what he was doing. He put down his phone, choosing his words carefully. "Claire Shaw, Eric Knight's girlfriend. She seems to have had too much to drink and is arguing with Eric in the group chat." His phone sat at the edge of the table, flashing endlessly. I watched as Daniel's attention was completely focused on the phone screen. A plate of beef finished grilling. "Ariana, you eat first. I need to use the loo." He hurriedly stood up and left, taking the incessantly flashing phone with him. Half an hour later, he returned to his seat. Perhaps my face looked too upset. Or perhaps it was the untouched beef on the table. He watched me carefully for a moment. Tapping the screen lightly, he added me to their small group chat. With a solemn expression, he said, "It really was just the couple arguing earlier. I've added you to the group, so you can see for yourself. I don't know if it counts as a coincidence." After I joined the group, I saw a voice message from a female profile picture in the chat. The laughter was clear. Daniel is truly the best person in this group. Daniel's head was cracked open by Eric Knight. However, it was reported that the other side wasn't badly hurt. A full bottle of beer only left a bump on his head, and he was discharged from the hospital the same day. Early the next morning, Claire Shaw entered the hospital room gracefully, carrying a thermos. Her face was full of apology. "I've caused you trouble again, Daniel." Daniel hesitated for a moment, not responding. She then turned to me, her face pale. "Ariana, you didn't blame Daniel because of me, did you?" Before I could speak, the man on the hospital bed glanced at me, his eyes filled with reproach. Claire began to scoop out some porridge from the thermos, gently blowing on it. But as she blew, her eyes reddened. Eric said he only sent out those photos because he was drunk. But Daniel, no matter how I think about it, I still feel upset. "Do you think I should forgive him?" As Claire's words fell, I saw the man on the bed stiffen. He looked away, his hand gripping the bed sheet so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Leaning against the wall, I responded, "You shouldn't forgive him. You should break up with him immediately and be with Daniel instead." "Ariana, don't talk nonsense." Daniel shot me a reproachful look. Claire's face instantly turned pale. Tears welling up in her eyes, she stood up hurriedly, as if trying to distance herself. "Ariana, you are Daniel's girlfriend. There's nothing between Daniel and me. You can't say such things." My gaze fell on the bowl of porridge in her hand. She immediately put it down. Flustered, she glanced at Daniel with her reddened eyes. "Daniel, say something." Daniel frowned at me. "Claire came to visit me out of kindness. Can you stop being so aggressive and saying unnecessary things?" Claire sniffled, her voice full of grievance. "It seems your girlfriend doesn't like me, Daniel. I should go. Make sure you drink the porridge. I made it myself." She left the hospital room, dejected, despite Daniel's attempts to make her stay. The small bowl of porridge on the bedside table was steaming. Daniel turned to look at me. "You're a woman too. Don't you feel any sympathy for Claire after those private photos of her were leaked?" I let out a cold laugh. "Hasn't my boyfriend already stood up for her? What else do you want? Should I kowtow to her and express my eternal gratitude?" Daniel was stunned by my retort. He awkwardly averted his gaze. "Who said you need to express eternal gratitude?" Daniel spent 3 days receiving injections at the hospital. On the day of his discharge, Claire Shaw came again. She stood at the doorway, her nose reddened by the cold wind. As soon as she saw Daniel, tears began streaming down her cheeks. "Daniel, Eric keeps saying we're having an affair. He's wrecked the house. What should we do?" Daniel's expression changed instantly. Indeed, he lost his composure and grabbed her wrist. His gaze scanned her up and down several times before he finally sighed in relief. "Eric didn't hurt you, did he?" Claire had fair skin. Her eyes were moist as she stood still, letting him hold her wrist. "No, but I'm so scared." He instinctively reached out to put his arm around Claire's shoulders. But as soon as his hand touched her, his body stiffened. He turned to look at me, his expression changing. "Ariana, I'm going with Claire to check things out. You go home and wait for me." In front of the hospital, a strong wind was blowing. I looked up and said, "Daniel, it's going to rain." Daniel frowned. "Don't try to stop me. Claire and Eric are fighting because of me. She's a girl, I can't let her go home alone." He added another sentence. "Ariana, wait for me at home. I'll be back soon." After saying this, he no longer hesitated and put his arm around Claire's shoulders. The wind was strong, blowing Claire's scarf around her neck. I stood there, watching her turn back and give me a slight smile. the sky began to rain again. In front of the hospital, people near and far started running to take shelter under the hospital porch. Behind me, a couple walked arm in arm. "Darling, we agreed that from now on, you'd always be with me when it rains." The man behind her laughed. "I know you're afraid of thunder and rain. I'll always be with you from now on." The rain got heavier. A blinding flash of lightning struck, followed by a thunderous boom. The woman behind me cried out, "Darling, I'm so scared. I've been afraid of thunderstorms since I was little." I met Daniel Foster on a stormy day. I was working late at the office. While waiting for the lift, lightning flashed and thunder roared. The rain was particularly heavy that day, and I screamed in fright. Daniel, as a client, happened to be leaving the office too. He gently tapped my shoulder. "Miss, don't be afraid. It's just rain." That day, I was shaking all over from fear. He comforted me for a long while and drove me home. During our honeymoon phase, he once held me and promised, "Whenever it rains in the future, I'll always be by your side." He kissed my forehead and sighed. "Such a timid girl. If another man found you during a thunderstorm, I might lose my baby." It was the rainy season then. Worried about my fear, he came to my office almost every day to personally oversee the project. The whole team was exhausted. Until the project ended. Daniel treated everyone to dinner and raised a toast, announcing, "Please take care of Ariana from now on." Only then did the project team realize they had endured so much extra work because of me. They made Daniel and me drink a lot. As we left the restaurant, a light rain began to fall. Though drunk, Daniel still held my hand tightly. "Don't be afraid, darling. Whenever it rains from now on, your boyfriend will be by your side." But when did things change? I can't help but think back. I remember that barbecue. It seems ever since Daniel added me to their small group chat. I started hearing Claire Shaw's name countless times from his mouth. The rain pattered against the window, making a rhythmic sound. It was completely dark by the time Daniel Foster returned home. However, he wasn't alone. A woman with reddened eyes followed behind him. Her wet clothes clung tightly to her slender frame. Claire Shaw looked utterly helpless. "Ariana, I'm so sorry to intrude." Daniel frowned, fetching my new towel from the bathroom and handing it to her. He then turned to explain to me. "Eric's acting like an unreasonable madman, convinced there's something going on between Claire and me. She can't go back now, so she'll stay with us for a few days." She used my towel to dry her hair. Looking up at him cautiously, she said, "Daniel, maybe I should just go to a hotel. This is really too much trouble for you both." She bit her lip, glancing in my direction intentionally. Although I used to stay here before, you have a girlfriend now." She didn't finish her sentence. But Daniel understood. He pressed his lips together, bending down to retrieve my new fluffy slippers from the shoe cabinet and placing them in front of her. "It's not safe for a woman to stay alone in a hotel. I'd be worried. As for the other things, don't concern yourself with them." Claire tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, smiling softly. "Well then. I hope you don't mind, Ariana." I forced a smile. "Not at all. It seems I'm the one intruding on you too. Do you need condoms? We don't have many left. Shall I go buy some for you?" Claire's face instantly turned pale. "Ariana!" Daniel shouted angrily, "How could you say such a thing?" He busied himself comforting his precious person. I turned and went back to my room. In my mind, I started making a mental inventory of my belongings here, and how to move them out. It seemed Daniel had finally managed to calm Claire down. Daniel rubbed his temples as he pushed open the bedroom door. "Claire and Eric had an argument because of me," he said. I looked up at him, waiting for him to continue. Daniel furrowed his brow. "I can't just ignore her. She'll only stay for a few days. Can't you be a bit more understanding?" I interrupted him, "You don't need to explain. Your Claire seems more familiar with your house than I am." His voice faltered, and he looked away guiltily. "That's all in the past. She hasn't stayed overnight since she came. I lowered my eyes. Whatever. He seemed taken aback by my response, looking up in surprise. I picked up a pillow. I'll sleep outside tonight. As I passed by him, he grabbed my sleeve. Why go outside? Won't that just make it obvious to Claire that we've been arguing about her? I stood silently, facing off with him. From outside, the sound of a hairdryer could be heard. Soon, the noise paused. Claire called out, "Daniel, where do you keep your shower gel?" Daniel sighed. "Fine, I'll sleep outside." "Just stop making a fuss, all right?" Claire Shaw came out of the bathroom wearing his shirt. Standing at the bedroom door, she poked her head in and asked me, "Ariana, I'm going to have a late-night snack with Daniel. Do you want to join?" The bedroom was dark. In the backlight from the living room, I could see her bare white legs. I walked over and closed the door. "No, thanks. I feel sick." All night long. The guest room door opened and closed and opened. The sound of the door opening and closing went on all night. I couldn't sleep. It wasn't until daybreak that I was woken by noises from the dining room. I opened the door to see Daniel sitting at the dining table, eating a slice of toast. Claire's eyes lit up. "Ariana, you're awake. Come and eat, I got up early to make breakfast." She didn't wait for me to speak. She put another plate of breakfast on the table. The toast was completely burnt. She seemed a bit frustrated. I only made 2 portions. I gave the good one to Daniel, Ariana. Before she finished, Daniel had already frowned. "Claire, don't you have anything to eat?" He started looking for his car keys. "I'll take you out for breakfast." As I passed by the dining table, I said flatly, "No need to go to all that trouble. I don't like burnt food." "Claire can have this portion." They both froze. Claire opened her mouth. "Ariana, I made this especially for you." Daniel was silent for a moment, then said, "Claire, she's really not good at cooking." That one sentence was enough to show where he stood. He continued looking for his car keys. The dining room was quiet for a long time. Until there was a crisp sound. Claire bit her lip. "Oh no, Daniel, I dropped the plate." The burnt toast sat on top of the broken pieces. A few crumbs had fallen off. Daniel immediately ran over to help her pick up the pieces. "Don't touch it, what if you cut yourself?" What a touching scene. I turned to the bathroom to freshen up. Claire Shaw hurriedly ran to the bathroom with the broken pieces to throw them in the bin. After a thud, she straightened up and looked at me through the mirror. Her voice was light. "Neither of us had breakfast, but why is Daniel only concerned about me? I thought he'd treat his girlfriend better than me." I laughed. "He's so good to you, yet he won't even give you a proper title." Claire's face changed as she lowered her voice. "I was the one who didn't accept his pursuit to be his girlfriend back then. What are you gloating about? What did you say?" I raised my voice. Daniel Foster immediately rushed in from the dining room, his eyes full of concern. "What's wrong with you two?" Claire's eyes reddened quickly. I just asked Ariana why she wasn't eating breakfast." She didn't finish. I abruptly threw down the facial cleanser in my hand. My voice continued to rise. "Claire said that you pursued her before but she didn't accept, and now she regrets it and wants you to kick me out." Claire's eyes widened, forgetting even to cry. "Daniel, I didn't say." Daniel furrowed his brow, remaining silent for a long while. "Claire, I've told everyone not to mention things from the past." Claire's face turned pale instantly. She looked at him, on the verge of collapse. "You don't believe me?" I had no interest in watching their tormented love story. I squeezed past them. After a year of living together, I had quite a few things at Daniel's place. As I was packing some valuable items, the bedroom door was pushed open. Seeing my suitcase upon entering, Daniel frowned. "What are you doing, running away from home?" "No," I said. He persistently held onto my luggage, refusing to let go. I said, "Moving out, making room for you two." His face visibly tensed up, his tone unfriendly. "Haven't you had enough drama, Ariana? She's only staying for a few days. Once the issue with Eric is resolved, she'll leave. If you're not willing, are you expecting a girl to go stay in a hotel lonely? Perhaps my reaction was too calm. It seemed to make Daniel calm down as well. After a while, he lowered his voice. I know you're jealous, but Claire and it's not what you think. I remained expressionless, waiting for him to make up a story. The sound of breaking porcelain came from outside, followed by a woman's cry of pain. Daniel's face changed almost instantly. He rushed out. From outside, Claire's soft sobs could be heard. It's my fault, I can't even wash dishes properly. On the bed, Daniel Foster's phone kept flashing. After unlocking, the screen remained on the lock screen page. In the photo, the woman's legs were spread into an M shape, leaving nothing to the imagination. Although her gaze was hazy, her fair face was still instantly recognizable as Claire Shaw. Someone burst clumsily into the bedroom. With a panicked look, Ariana, where's the disinfectant? Claire's hand is injured. His words trailed off abruptly as he saw the phone in my hand. The color drained from his face. Until Claire Shaw let out a pained whimper from the kitchen. He finally snapped back to reality. Claire and I are just friends, nothing inappropriate happened. You know that photo. Eric Knight sent it. The resentment that had been building up in my heart seemed to dissipate in that moment. I put down his phone, sincerely suggesting, you should take Claire to the hospital. She'd probably be more touched by that. What if her wounds heal if you wait? Daniel nodded distractedly. He hurried out. Then came back, looking a bit pale. Ariana, you're not angry? The image of Claire Shaw's photo flashed in my mind. I met his gaze. Daniel, do you want me to make a scene? He froze, then averted his eyes and explained. There's really nothing between Claire and me. I remained silent, watching him rummage around the room for iodine. I stayed quiet throughout. I didn't want to cause any more issues before moving my things out. Messy things with no boundaries. Arguments would just be a waste of time. I packed the last item. Walking out of the bedroom, Daniel was carefully dabbing iodine on her hand with a cotton swab, gently wiping it. The wheels of the suitcase made a sound as they rolled across the floor. Daniel looked up. Our eyes met, and he instinctively let go of Claire Shaw's hand. She hissed in pain. He quickly raised her hand again. Claire, does it hurt? I walked straight to the door. I went downstairs, and my phone rang. Daniel's voice sounded a bit anxious. Where are the plasters? Are you downstairs? I can't find them. Buy a box when you come back. Downstairs. The wind blew sand and gravel, stinging my face. A taxi stopped in front of me. The driver helped me load the suitcase, and the call was still connected. I held the phone to my ear. Daniel suddenly lowered his voice. Why is so much of your stuff gone, Ariana? Where are you? Leaving his house. I had already composed myself. Some things are still at your place. I'll have a moving company pick them up later. He took a few deep breaths on the phone. Ariana, what do you mean? What moving? Are you breaking up with me? I said in a calm voice. I thought in the adult world, we didn't need to be so explicit. There was a thud on the other end of the line. It sounded like a phone dropping to the floor. After some commotion, his voice came through again. Come back first. We'll talk face to face after Claire is settled. There was no need to say anything more. I hung up on him. I returned to the small flat I had bought before. After a year, a layer of dust had settled in the room. I had no time to clean up. I called a moving company to go to Daniel's place to move things first. As I was leaving the lift with the housekeeping team, I heard the sound of smashing and banging from inside the flat. Through the security door, I could clearly hear Claire's shrill screams. I opened the door. A man had his back to me, swinging a baseball bat towards the drinks cabinet. Crash! Glass shattered on the floor. Claire was trembling behind Daniel. Eric, can't you calm down a bit? Eric's body tensed. The baseball bat suddenly pointed at the two of them. If there's nothing going on between you, why are you sleeping together? As he spoke, he kicked the shoe rack by his feet in frustration. Claire's face turned pale, her hands clutching tightly to Daniel's clothes. We didn't sleep together. Yesterday Ariana was staying here too. Eric's gaze suddenly turned to me. His whole face was flushed red with anger. I walked into the room and took a quick look around. Indeed, I was here last night. Claire seemed to have received some sort of pardon. Her eyes reddened instantly, tears gathering in the corners. I told you, Daniel and I are just friends. Before she could finish speaking, I cut in. However, I slept in the room by myself. I didn't see what they did or didn't do. Claire's voice stopped abruptly. She looked at me in shock. You're talking nonsense. Eric's face instantly turned ashen, veins bulging on his forehead. The hand gripping the bat trembled slightly. Daniel shielded her, a flash of panic in his eyes. Eric, we've been mates for years, how could I possibly? Before he could finish, Eric's anger ignited. The baseball bat swung directly towards the two of them. Daniel pulled Claire into his arms and dodged. With a crash, the bat smashed the painting in the living room. Daniel swore. The next moment, the two men were grappling with each other, exchanging blows. Claire stood far away, unwilling to approach. Ariana, quick, stop them. The scene descended into chaos. I walked in through the doorway. Skirting around the two men, I checked each room, the living room and kitchen. Before taking out some ice water from the fridge and handing it to the moving team who had accompanied me. Have some water first, we'll continue moving things later, I said. Men certainly had more stamina. I had calculated the value of the items they had damaged, while the two were still locked in a fierce struggle. Freeze! Police! Some officers pushed open the door and surveyed the scene. Who called the police? I did, I said, standing up from the corner. Officer, these men have damaged my valuable possessions. The two men were forcibly separated, their faces and bodies bruised. The room was in complete disarray. I clapped my hands. Please remove all the ladies' items from here. Take the new ones away and throw the used ones directly into the rubbish bin downstairs. Oh, and the humidifier, iron, and all the kitchen appliances, take those away too. And that hairdryer, just smash it. When I moved in, there was only a computer and a washing machine here. He said he lived alone. Other things weren't really necessary. So most of the items were added by me later. Daniel Foster's eye was swollen. Ariana? Do you have to make a scene at a time like this? Ari, you're going too far. Claire Shaw's shoulders trembled uncontrollably, her eyes brimming with tears. I couldn't help but laugh. This is going too far? Unlocking my phone screen. I also have a video of you having sex with Daniel Foster last night. Shall I send it to Eric Knight? Would that be going too far? The color drained from Claire Shaw's face instantly. Eric Knight's eyes bulged, struggling like a madman. Claire Shaw, you whore. You, recording without consent is illegal, officer. Claire Shaw's legs went weak, suddenly panicked. She was held up by Daniel Foster. The man seemed a bit flustered. Ariana, don't talk nonsense, I just went to help her change a light bulb. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Seeing the police officer frown, I looked away, my voice flat. Secret recording is illegal, so I didn't record anything. I was just bluffing. I didn't bother to look at their spectacular expressions any further. I handed the shopping list from my phone to the police officer. Officer, these are my purchase receipts. I demand compensation at cost for all damaged items. Inside the house, my friends and a moving team were called to clear out the ladies' belongings. A group of 4 people all ended up at the police station. The damaged items were equally split between those smashed and those thrown. The 2 men paid compensation. The remaining issue of mutual assault was considered a civil matter. Leaving the police station, Claire Shaw immediately broke up with Eric Knight. It was as if she was certain Eric couldn't lay a hand on her at the police station entrance. I've never betrayed you, but you hurt people for no reason. It's truly incomprehensible, she said. She bit her lip, looking at me somewhat helplessly. "If you want to blame someone, blame those who sowed discord between us," she declared, closing her eyes with determination. "Otherwise, you wouldn't have." Slap. Before anyone could react, my hand struck her face hard. Claire screamed, lunging at me with flailing arms. She managed one step before Daniel Foster caught her by the waist. She cried out, "Daniel, your girlfriend hit me." "Hit her back. Call the police, I want to report this." Daniel shouted too, "Ariana, how could you hit someone?" I unlocked my phone. A video started playing. The muffled moans from the guest bedroom filled the air at maximum volume. Eric's face changed instantly. He grabbed Daniel's collar and swung his fist. The men's angry shouts and the woman's screams created a cacophonous symphony. Among the three of them, not one spared me a glance. I got into a taxi. The driver, having witnessed the brawl, sighed. Young people these days, they're so full of rage. On the third day, Daniel Foster appeared at the company entrance. Behind a large bouquet of red roses, a face tinged with blue and purple emerged. "Ariana, surprise," he exclaimed. I turned to leave, but he quickly grabbed my hand. His swollen eyes looked at me pleadingly. "What happened between Claire and me isn't what you think." "I can explain." A few colleagues passed by, eyeing Daniel with surprise. "Mr. Foster?" they exclaimed in shock. He looked somewhat embarrassed. The colleagues inquired, "Mr. Foster, how did you get injured?" Even if he was shameless, he couldn't admit to being beaten up for stealing his friend's woman. Daniel hesitated awkwardly. "Just had a bit of a tiff with Ariana," he mumbled. The colleagues nodded in understanding. "Ariana, you really did a number on him." Daniel's lips were pressed tightly together, showing no intention of explaining further. I laughed bitterly, yanking my hand away. "Getting beaten up for messing with your friend's woman and blaming it on me? Mr. Foster, you really have no shame." Daniel's expression changed slightly. "Ariana, don't say such things out of jealousy. Claire was at home that day when you were there too. What could we have done?" I was grateful to him for reminding me of that video. I found the group chat for the team that had collaborated with Daniel's company at the time. From Daniel sneaking into the guest room, to the muffled moans from inside, to Claire running out wearing his shirt, all lovey-dovey. The whole thing uncensored. Within minutes, Daniel's phone was ringing off the hook. After hanging up, his expression instantly changed. "Ariana Murphy, what have you done? Have you gone mad?" News about scandalous affairs always gets eagerly shared by adults. Behind closed doors, some morally questionable people might even praise such behavior as impressive. But when it becomes public, it's seen as a matter of misconduct. He was urgently called back to the company. Things finally settled down at the office. The boss called me into his office and gave me a bit of a talking to. Being young, I wasn't smooth enough in handling the situation. In the end though, he still signed off on my business trip request. Somehow, that video was shared in Eric Knight's small group chat. Eric sent several 60-second voice messages. In the last one, he sneered. What kind of man would share those kinds of photos of his own girlfriend for others to admire? You think I'm that despicable? That I have no bottom line? That photo was bloody sent to me by another man. Claire Shaw claimed it was an A1 face swap. I posted it in the group to ask if you lot could tell. His words stirred up a storm. Claire had always been the group's darling. They had all been close friends since university. Several men in the group had confessed their feelings to Claire before. But none had succeeded. It wasn't until Claire and Eric were caught together at a hotel that they went public on social media. Eric seemed to suddenly realize something. He spat into the group chat. When I got together with her, Claire hadn't slept with all of you, had she? For a moment, the group fell silent. I didn't see what happened next. I quietly left the group. Enough of this mess and these awful people. I heard news of Daniel Foster again. It was the property management company calling me. They said a gentleman had been waiting outside my door for a day and night. In the security footage, it was Daniel's face, covered in stubble. I closed the video. I replied to the property management. I don't know him. Please send him away. Soon, my phone rang. On the call, the cold wind was howling and Daniel's voice sounded confused. Ariana, where are you? I've been waiting outside your door for so long, knocking but you didn't answer. Did you go out? When will you be back? I didn't say anything. He sounded a bit helpless. I bought all new things for the house. Slippers, towels, all new. And a hairdryer, humidifier, all the things you might need, I replaced with new ones. His voice trembled slightly. I never thought about separating from you. That night, I don't know why I was so foolish. But I regret it, Ariana. I know I did something wrong, but prodigal sons can return. Can you give me one more chance? Let me make it up to you for the rest of my life, please. The future, I'll give you all my future, I swear. I was silent for a long time. In the softest voice, I told him. I'm coming back now. Wait for me. I hung up the phone. Switched to airplane mode. All in one go. Someone posted a photo in the residence group chat. This guy has been standing at the entrance of our estate all day. At management, what's going on? The management replied that he was apologizing to his girlfriend. Some people felt sympathetic. This poor chap looks a bit pitiful. Is his girlfriend from our estate? Management, please do something. It's about to rain, and the forecast says there'll be heavy rain. My heart clenched with worry. It wasn't until someone in the estate posted a video of the heavy rain that my anxiety slowly eased. In the downpour, Daniel Foster stood rigidly at the entrance, refusing to take shelter, as if to prove his determination. In the video, the heavy rain drenched his body, soaking him completely. He must have tried calling me. When the call didn't go through, he sent a WhatsApp voice message. Ariana, it's raining. How long until you're back? I'm waiting for you. Don't be afraid. I promised, remember? Whenever it rains, I'll always be by your side. I gazed out at the sunny view outside my window. Squinting at the bright glare, I sipped my coffee, finished the project plan I was working on, and leisurely replied to him. Compared to being with someone like you, I'd rather face a thunderstorm. It took him a long time to respond. Ariana Murphy, are you toying with me? The project out of town took half a year. Daniel Foster kept trying to contact me, using countless unfamiliar numbers. Even my boss sighed. Daniel Foster waits outside the company every day. Although I didn't intentionally seek information, I still heard news about him. Due to conduct issues and a sharp decline in work performance after the incident, he received a dismissal notice from the company. This time, he was no longer the confident Mr. Foster. Claire Shaw initially stayed by his side. She publicly declared in the small group chat that she would accompany Daniel to make a comeback. In less than 2 months, she had moved on to her next boyfriend. Notably, I also knew her new public relationship. We had dined together before. He was another man from the small group chat. As the project ended and I got off the plane, I saw Daniel in the distance with reddened eyes. His voice trembled. Ariana, you're finally back. He stared at me dryly. I've been waiting for you. Behind me, a man approached, pushing a suitcase. Let's go. Mr. Wolf has booked a private room for our welcome dinner. Daniel froze. He stared in disbelief, stammering, You too. Ariana. I waited for you for half a year. I never got together with Claire after you left. He sounded increasingly aggrieved. You so quickly. The man behind me spoke in a cool tone. And who might this be? I looked away. I don't know him. Let's go. The man behind me didn't say much. He pushed the suitcase as the waiting driver waved. We got into the car. Daniel suddenly ran out, shouting. Ariana, only I truly love you. Sitting in the passenger seat, I silently pressed the window button on the driver's side. From the back, the man quipped, quite persistent, isn't he? He was the business partner I brought back. After this experience, I wasn't embarrassed. Instead, I smiled. Mr. Brewer got to see quite a show right after landing. With such an exciting performance, I hope you see our sincerity in this cooperation. In the driver's seat, a gentle breeze blew in through the window. In the sky, a light rain began to fall. The car was quiet. After a long while, the man spoke. Of course, I must honor Ms. Murphy's gesture.